Welcome to my house. Welcome to the Structure Talk podcast, a production of Structure Tech Home Inspections. My name is Reuben Saltzman. I'm your host, alongside building science geek Tessa Murray. We help home inspectors up their game through education, and we help homeowners to be better stewards of their houses. We've been keeping it real on this podcast since 2019, and we are also the #1 home inspection podcast in the world, according to my mom. Welcome to another episode. Tessa, great to see you. How you doing today?
Hey, Reuben. It's good to see you. How are you?
Fantastic. No complaints. Feeling energized and good.
And let me guess. Does it have to do with the topic for today? Why you feel so good?
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But today's topic, we're taking kind of a little turn from our normal stuff. Normally, we're talking about houses and home inspections and everything related to that. But this one's kind of a weird topic for us. We're actually going to be talking about a trending thing that I recently blogged about and I did a video about. And it's about cold plunges or cold water exposure.
We're going to dive into a new topic today.
We're going to dive in. Let's go. Or maybe we'll put our toes in. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with the cold plunge topic, you just got to dive in. The faster you do it, the easier it is.
Get it over with.
Yeah.
And so this is all about cold plunges. It's definitely, you hit the nail on the head when you said it is a trending topic. I mean, I'm hearing about this all over the place. I get other home inspectors telling me they're doing it. There's people at my church doing this. I got neighbors who do it. I mean, everybody seems to be getting into this. And so I thought we'd talk about it a little bit where I can share what I've done to make it pretty affordable and simple, which removes the barriers to doing this. So many of the things you do, if it's tough, if there's a bunch of resistance, you got to get out a hose and do all this other stuff. It's like, you're not going to do it. But so let's talk about it. Tessa. What do you know about this?
Well, okay. So I think the first time I heard about this was a few years ago, and I can't remember who introduced me to it. But isn't the basic principle kind of that, immersing yourself in extremely cold water or cold air improves your immune system, your health, reduces stress, reduces inflammation? It's just good for your health in a lot of ways, physically, mentally, potentially. And I have not done a deep dive into the science like you have, Reuben, but I'm familiar with it, and also who's the founder of this whole theory? Is it Wim Hof?
Well, he's certainly one of the best known names. I don't know if he's the one who started this. I'm sure it's been around for centuries. But he's really kind of made a name for himself because he's got some world records for, I don't know what, like swimming under ice,
being
climbing to the top of mountains in his underwear, like cold weather exposure.
He can run half marathons barefoot.
Yes. So, and that's his name is Wim Hof. It's WIMHOF. And it's funny. I was having a conversation with somebody at my church, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I listen to this podcast, and this guy does all this stuff, blah 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 blah." And I said, "Have you ever heard of Wim Hof?" He'd never heard of him. I gave him the info, and he's like, "Oh, I just re-listened to some of these podcasts." And the guy's referencing Wim Hof throughout the whole thing. He's like, it just never clicked until you said his name. But he's a well-known dude.
Yeah. So, okay. So I've tried it recently. I actually tried it. I went up to a place in northern Wisconsin that had saunas, and then they also had a cold plunge. And so that was kind of the first time I officially did a cold plunge, I guess. But I've done it before unofficially years ago when I went up to Canada and was living. I don't know if I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast. I've shared this with you, Reuben, and some people at Structure Tech, but I spent some time with some natives up in a First Nation in Canada, and we would do sweats and then jump in the frozen lake right afterwards. And little did I know that was this, practice, putting it into practice. And I always felt amazing after that.
Yes.
I can't even explain how it re-energizes you, and you just have so much energy moving through your body. And I think it really did actually improve my immune system too. I was not getting as sick those winters.
They say that's one of the benefits of this, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other variables that can impact health. I understand that. But I definitely just felt better. I felt stronger, felt healthier, felt more alive. So yeah, I'm curious to hear kind of how you heard about it and how long you've been doing this.
Well, we would do this kind of unofficially at the family cabin before I started learning about all the benefits of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Okay.
heard that my parents have got this wood-fired sauna up there, and
Yeah.
I sauna is how you're supposed to say
Sauna.
it. Sauna. And so you get the wood going in there, and you keep adding wood, and it takes like a couple hours, and eventually it's just ridiculously hot. You get in there, you pour the water on the rocks, and it's just a blast of hot air. I mean, you're melting, and then you run down and you jump in the lake. And normally we do that at night, and sometimes we do it kind of early in the season, or we do it really late in the season before everything is iced over. And that lake would get really cold, and it's like it stops your heart, but then you go back and you warm back up in the sauna, and you go back and you do it a few times.
Yeah.
But after reading more about it, I mean, I'm kind of on a health kick. I've been on a health kick for, I don't know, the last 10 years, it feels like.
Yeah.
Ever since I had this big back surgery, the recovery process from that got me going down this path. And I've read a lot of books on health and improvement and hacks. I mean, I've read a lot from Dave Asprey, listened to a lot from Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins. And I read that book, Wim Hof's book. I think it's called The Iceman or something like that. He's got a few books out there. But his big thing is cold water exposure, whether it's jumping in a frozen lake or maybe just taking a cold shower. He talks about all the benefits of that. And after I read his book, I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way to incorporate this. And the easiest way to do it, everybody's got one. You just turn your shower to cold. And it's like you don't need to turn it all the way to cold and jump in that way, because you're going to tense up. You're going to your body's going to kind of lock up. The better way to do it is to expose yourself to where you're still relaxed. Don't get it so cold that you completely lose your breath and you have to tense. You got to be able to just ease into it and be okay with it. Yeah. And so, you turn your shower to cool at the end of the shower, and maybe take a cool shower for 15 seconds and then shut it off and get out. And
I was going to ask you how long he recommends doing that for, because I've been doing that just without even realizing almost every day, or not every day, but most days. At the end of a long hot shower, I'll switch it to cold. But I don't know.
Well, that's awesome.
How long should you stand in the cold water for?
I think he said in his book to try to work your way up to 5 minutes.
Okay.
It gets kind of boring. It's like, I'm looking at the clock like, all right, let's go. And
minutes. Okay.
And
yeah. I'm like, maybe 15, 30 seconds for me.
Well, still, I think there's benefits in even doing that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you did that. You start off with the lake stuff at your family's cabin, and then the cold showers.
Yeah, and then started doing it more intentionally, taking cold showers at home, and eventually work my way down to the point where the water's all the way cold. You keep turning the dial until the water dips down a little bit. Then there's no hot water getting mixed in, and do that. And I would do that throughout the summer, but then once it started getting really cold, I kind of wimped out. And I'm like, it takes too long to recover. I'm not into this. But this is the year that I'm sticking with it. And I, I was talking with another home inspector buddy of mine, is Chris. He's out of Ohio, and we talked about cold water plunges, like getting your body in. And, Tony Robbins, I watched this movie of his, and he's got this cold plunge installed in his yard where it's like,
Of course.
it's installed in the ground.
Yep.
It's refrigerated, it's temperature controlled, the water circulates and all that. He does that every day. But if you can't afford something like that, like the rest of us, there's some pretty inexpensive ways to do it. And I tried starting out just doing it in my bathtub, run cold water in your tub. That is very cold. And I tried getting it even colder by dumping a bunch of snow in there. Last year was a great year for it.
Yeah.
Where I grabbed a few 5-gallon buckets full of snow and dumped them in. And that definitely got it colder. But then when I was done, there's all the gunk in the snow. I didn't do it like right after a
you didn't grab the yellow snow, did you?
There was no yellow snow. But there was all this junk in my bathtub, and I was like, all right, I'm not into this. And I don't like laying down for some reason either. It's like it's much more comfortable to do it if you're in an upright position. Yeah. So my buddy Chris told me he ordered this portable ice bath, and it's basically a vinyl barrel. It's supported with 6 little sticks of PVC that go around that make up the ribs. And you can set it up anywhere. You fill it up with your garden hose and you hop in. And, if you're in a cold climate like Minnesota, we've got cold tap water. My tap water coming out, it's about 58 degrees. And, I said this in the video I made, it might not seem like 58 is all that cold when you compare it to freezing, but I challenge anyone, try it.
It's uncomfortably cold.
It is very, very cold. And so I did that throughout the summer. I just had it sitting outside underneath my deck. Mm-hmm. I'd fill it up with the garden hose, and I'd have to warm my body up first. I could usually not bring myself to just jump in unless it was a really hot summer night. Yeah. And I'd have to do some cardio workout or something. And then do it.
Yeah. After a workout.
Yeah. Now I've heard from bodybuilding people that if you're doing weight training, doing the cold exposure isn't the best thing right after you've torn your muscles.
Oh, okay.
If you want to build muscle, you're not supposed to expose them to cold immediately. Okay. But, so it's probably a better thing to do right after doing cardio, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. But
okay.
Had it outside for a while. And then I didn't want to keep going outside in the winter. So I was thinking about this through the summer. So in the fall, I ran a water line. Now, we've talked about this in the past where I'm a big proponent of not running softened water to your kitchen faucet.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said it backwards. Not running hard water to your kitchen faucet. You should run softened water to your kitchen faucet, just like everything else in your house. And in a lot of houses, you find a bypass where they don't do that. They intentionally run hard water to the kitchen faucet. And one of the first things I did after moving into my house was I rerouted my water line so it's softened. So I had this extra water line in my utility room, and I just tapped off of that. I ran a little water line along the ceiling, and I put a garden hose fitting on the end. And then I picked up a $50 sprinkler timer from Menards, connected that on, and then connected a little garden hose running down into my tub. So this way I can pull out my phone, hit a few buttons on there and hit go. And then it fills the cold plunge, the portable ice bath. It'll fill it with cold water. And then I can get in. It's like I don't have to go down and watch it and see, wait till it's 2/3 full and then shut the water off. You just hit the buttons and go. So I've made it really easy, all for, the cost of the cold plunge was probably $100. The timer was about $50, and the rest of the stuff, it was parts and piping that I had sitting around my house. So that my total investment was like $150. And now I've got a cold plunge that I use regularly.
So yeah, you just go into your basement, take a supply line, connect it to a hose, make sure everything's connected well, install a new tub, connect it to the drain, a floor drain or some other kind of drain, put on a little sensor timer that will connect to your phone so you can just turn it on, let it fill up by itself. Smart smart switches, and then you're done, right?
That's
Super
it.
easy.
I know you're mocking me.
I just have to say, I did read your blog before this podcast, and I read that, and I just started chuckling because, Reuben, you may not realize how unique you are, but I don't know anyone that could just like, okay, I'm gonna whip together this homemade little spa system, cold plunge in my basement, and you did it for like a few $100 and like maybe an hour of your time, right?
That's exactly it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that you won't try or do. If we were living in like a time period like with Benjamin Franklin, I'm pretty sure you would have just been an inventor. Right? Like you would have been tinkering with things all the time.
Like to tinker, for sure.
Yeah. Exploring, experimenting, discovering, and inventing for sure. It is one of your gifts, I will say. But I was inspired by the fact that you could do this at home. And I'm sure there will be people that are listening to this that think, oh, okay, if he did it, maybe I can try it. Maybe I can do this too. I'm not going to attempt it, but yeah.
I'll give you a tip too. If you're going to try this and you're in a warmer climate, if you're like Texas or Florida,
where
something
the
like that.
Groundwater is warm. What do you do?
Yeah, you can't take cold showers. You can take cool showers. That's it.
Yeah.
And your cold plunge is not going to be all that cold. But I've got a buddy down in Florida, another home inspector friend. His name is Brian, and he said what he would do is he'd get these little 6-quart storage containers. You get them at Home Depot. They're like $1.99 or something, and he'd fill those with ice, stick them in his freezer, and then you pull it out, and you've got the world's largest ice cube. And so
fill it with ice? Oh, fill it with like water, put it in the freezer, let it freeze.
Oh, fill it with ice.
You'd need a freezer big enough where you can put like these things in them.
You need some extra room. Yeah.
Okay.
That could be a limiter.
A hindrance,
and I don't have that room in my freezer.
Me neither.
But I get cold water too. So
yeah,
I'm good to go there. But it seems like a great way if you want to get it down, if you want to get that water temperature down, just make your own homemade gigantic ice cubes. I guess it's really effective.
Yeah. Or if you live in Minnesota, you don't need to do all of this amazing, creating a whole spa in your basement like Reuben did. You can just literally go outside. We're doing this show right during the coldest snap of the winter, right? It has been so cold the last few weeks. It's like the highs have been in the negatives and the wind chills have been like what, -20, -30?
So cold. Yeah, I saw -30 the other day with the wind chill. It was brutal.
It's been awful. But okay, so question: if you're not doing a cold plunge, there's other options like cryogenic, like capsules.
I know what you're. Yeah.
Where you can have cold air circulating around your body and stuff too. But I feel like Mother Nature is providing that for free. If you are brave enough to go outside with very little clothing on when it's that cold, you can get an instant freeze effect.
Yeah, or go out in your yard and lay down in the snow and make snow angels and lay there for a while. That would be a good thing to do. All your
neighbors are hey, is that Reuben out there making a snow angel in his boxers?
You know what? I'm going to see if I can find a photo. There was a ski trip I took with a bunch of home inspector people through IEB. Yeah. And a bunch of us were sitting in the hot tub and we all got out and we all got in the snow and we made snow angels and we laid there for a while. And some woman took a picture of us all laying in the snow and brought it down. I'll see if I can find that photo. It was pretty good.
You crazy kids. Yeah. It does burn. I've done that too. I think people that are listening to this think we're crazy, but if you live in a cold climate like us and you've got snow and you've been in a hot tub for a long time, I think it's just you're experimenting. You're like, okay, what's this going to feel like if I just go jump in the snow, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to die. It'll be fine.
It stings a little bit. It burns.
Yeah. And then you get back in the hot tub and you feel great.
Warm back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're crazy. We are
We're
crazy, aren't
crazy,
we?
but
Yeah.
I'll put a link to the video I made in the show notes if you want to see my setup, see how it all
Yeah.
works. If you're
I
interested
would
in doing
highly
something
recommend
like
it.
that
It is
yourself.
very, very impressive setup, Reuben. And the idea, how did you get the idea about the sprinkler timer thing?
It just I knew that a garden hose hanging into it would be the way to do it. I was thinking about having a hard pipe water line, but then the
Yeah.
water line's going to be in the way. So I knew I wanted something flexible, and I'm like, well,
Okay.
I want this on a timer. I've owned sprinkler timers before, and it just seemed like, well, this is a good way so you can set it and let it go and have it shut off at a certain time. I didn't know that there was such thing as a digital
Wow.
one, and it wasn't
Yeah,
a
I
lot
didn't either.
more for that, where you can have the time set exactly and you can control
Amazing.
it on your phone.
That blew my mind. So you go onto this app on your phone and you can turn it on from there and then turn it off after a certain amount of time.
Exactly. Although, I will say it's just a little bit more involved because I have a shut-off valve on the water line that supplies water to it. And
Oh,
my default is to keep the water line off. So I
yeah.
actually do have to go down in my basement, open the water line, and then close the drain valve on my cold plunge. I got to do that first.
You know
And
what?
then I hit the app.
To make this next level, you can replace that valve with a digital one that you can control from an app too. And you
Oh,
can just turn it all on
Tessa,
from your phone.
why don't I have that?
Stay
And
tuned. I'm sure next week we'll hear an update, right?
well, yeah, and even next level after that, have the valve open for
Yeah.
6 minutes and then close automatically. Now
Yes. There you
that's what
go.
I ought to do.
Everything's
Yeah,
going to be digital. Okay,
yeah.
here's another logistical question. How often I saw in this setup that you've got, the tub connected to some fittings that go to your floor drain in your basement so you can easily drain the tub. How often do you drain it? Do you drain it after every cold plunge or do you
Every
drain it
time.
like once a week or what?
Yeah,
Every
yeah, every
time.
time. Yep.
Now is that what these experts recommend or is that
I
just a Reuben
don't
thing?
know, but that's the only way for me to make sure the water's cold.
Gotcha.
And
Yes.
it's
Okay.
not that much water. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's less water than you would use if you're
Okay.
taking a bath.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it
Okay.
takes 6 minutes to fill this thing. So it's
Okay.
not that much water. I mean, if you think about, okay, I'm gonna set a sprinkler out in my yard to water the lawn. How
Yeah.
long do you have those sprinklers running? I'm doing 6 minutes.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
I
Okay.
I got some crappy comments on Facebook about, oh, sounds like a waste
Such a
of water
waste.
for a
Yeah.
rich country and blah blah blah. It's like, how much
Uh-huh.
water is this really? It's
Yeah.
it's not that much.
Yeah.
I
Well,
I,
and if
I don't
someone
feel
takes
bad
a
about it.
10-15 minute shower every day, they're using more water than that.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's cold
Have you
plunges in a
have you
nutshell.
started integrating your shampooing and your other practices in the cold plunge, so it's a one-stop shop for you in the morning?
I go right into the shower after that. And if I'm doing a cold plunge, I do not take a warm shower. I
You
start
don't?
off on really cool, move it to cold, take a really fast shower, and then get
Really?
out. And then
Yeah.
I think the big benefit is letting your body bring
Yeah.
itself back to a normal temperature. And it could take a while. And I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I've been slacking. I've only been doing it a couple times a week with this huge cold snap, just because
Yeah.
it takes so long to recover. And if I got to leave the house afterward, I don't want to go out in the cold when
No.
when I've still got goosebumps. So
I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that. Have you noticed a big difference? How I don't know if you said how long you've been doing this. Have you noticed a big difference health wise?
I've been doing it diligently since summertime.
Okay.
And I don't know. I made a bunch of changes this summer because I think you and I have talked about this off of the podcast, but
Yeah.
I did that 75 hard challenge. I think we may have mentioned it quickly on the podcast, where it's
Mm-hmm.
a 75-day challenge and you're supposed to not drink any alcohol, follow a diet, exercise twice a day, drink a gallon of water, all this other stuff, 75 days in a row. So I did that, and I was like, all right, I should get my cholesterol tested. I do that every couple of years, and I know
Yeah.
that it's been going up throughout
Yeah.
my life. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a hereditary thing, I've been told. But
Yeah. Me
I
too.
really,
Yes, I am on both my good and bad cholesterol are high actually.
okay.
And
All right.
it is a genetic thing, and I need to keep an eye on it because I'm borderline medication. And I'm
Yeah,
35.
you're
And
35. Yeah.
I
It
I do
doesn't get
fairly
better
well.
as you
Yeah, I
age.
do fairly well, and I'm healthy, but yeah, it's high.
Yeah. So total tangent on this, but we said we were going to bring it up.
Yeah.
My doctor had talked about, maybe you want to look into getting on a statin or something like that, maybe some medication to bring that down. But I had a family member who had something similar, and she recommended this book called The China Study, and it's all about changing your diet for a lot of reasons. And for me, it was for my cholesterol, where I ended up eliminating pretty much anything animal based, but also sticking with a whole food plant based diets. And when I say whole food, it's like you're not eating parts of plants. You're not eating things like
Processed.
processed sugar,
Yeah.
or oils or any of that. So, you've got if you had a big circle, you could say this is vegetarian. And then you
Yeah.
put a smaller circle inside of it. Well, that's vegan. But then you
Yep.
put an even smaller circle inside of that and say that's whole food plant based.
Yeah.
And so I switched to that in August.
That's
And
intense.
it
Yeah.
it is, but on the other hand, I ate what I felt like I ate pretty well.
You
And
did.
I would
Yeah.
eat a very low carb diet. I mean, very few carbs other than, fruits
You'd
and stuff
already
like
cut out
that.
all the fun, is what you're saying before
Yeah,
that. So it was easy to transition for you.
but now with this diet, I do eat a lot more carbs than I ever used to. I mean, I have
Interesting.
oatmeal or steel cut oats with breakfast every day. And I had eliminated that before. So now it's like it kind of opened up a bunch of new food that I wasn't
Oh,
eating
the
before.
joy
It's
of
like, okay, now
oatmeal.
I got permission. The joy of oatmeal. And you know what? I'm going to settle this right now. Steel cut oats are far better than oatmeal. Okay. they are nutty and they are delicious.
You'd have to educate me on the difference on another podcast or off air.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll
save our
make you
listeners.
some.
But
I'll make you some.
okay, so you have switched to this pretty restrictive diet of whole plant based diet. No
Yeah.
meat, no animal products, nothing processed, no sugar. And so what is your cholesterol like now?
It's Tessa. All right. Drum roll.
Yeah.
Yep.
Drum roll.
I tested my cholesterol 2 months after doing this diet, and my bad cholesterol dropped in half.
What?
I kid you not. It dropped in half. So I'm in the healthy person range now. Like I don't need to get on a statin or anything like that.
Wow.
I'm good. It's
and
all about
how do
diet.
you feel? How are you feeling?
Oh,
Energy
I feel great.
and
I feel great. I feel like I've never had so much energy. So
that's amazing.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Wow. You are okay. You're inspiring me, Reuben. I don't eat a ton of meat, but I do eat some. I've kind of switched to more plant-based as well, but I do enjoy my sweets and my breads and all of that stuff as well. So that would be hard for me to give up kind of some of that processed stuff. But if I'd rather try that and switch my diet than go on cholesterol medication,
Yeah,
in my late
if it ever
30s or
gets
40s.
to the point where you have to, it's like, just try it and see what happens.
Yep.
Not easy at first, but you figure out what to eat, and it's like, okay, this is fine. This is my new normal. And if I'm having dinner at a friend's house and they're cooking a brisket, I'm gonna eat it. I'm not completely nuts. I'd say I'm 98% there.
Yeah. You're not going to make a socially awkward scene because of your restrictive diet.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? This was a fun podcast. We did not talk about anything house related today, or anything technical, but we did dive into some kind of health things. And I think, Reuben, you're glowing. I just want to start calling you Benjamin Button. Yes, that cracked me up.
Hilarious. Oh, I love it.
All the hacks going on, and you are you're thriving. Let's just say you look well, you feel well. You're aging backwards, so
I'm trying.
You're an
That's
inspiration
the
to
goal.
us all in so many ways.
Well, I'll put a link. I'll put a link to that book in the show notes because that book was just. It was one of the most incredible books I've ever read because it's talks all about the China study.
The diet book. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right. Cool. Well, good show, Tess. I hope we didn't lose too many people who are just here for advice on houses or home inspections. But it's okay. We can take a turn and we can change it up as we see fit. This is our podcast.
It's true. Yeah. If anybody's listening out there. Actually, you know what? I do want to say thank you to all the people who took the time to write to us after our last episode of 2023. Because I think on that podcast, we just, let people know how much we appreciate you guys for listening to this show and for supporting us all these years. And we appreciate your feedback too on any ideas you have. We take them seriously, and we've created some shows based off your suggestions. So keep it coming. How do they how do people communicate with us, Reuben? What's the email?
Please email us podcast@structuretech.com.
Yes. Perfect. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Tessa, great seeing you.
Good to see you too.
We will be back next week with a first-time guest. That's as much as I'm going to tease it just in case it doesn't work out, but I'm already looking forward to next week's show.
Me too.
All right.
Thanks, Benjamin. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.